All right, Blacktastic people. Hope everybody is ready for a Blacknificent, Blacktastic, and Blackerific session with the Deputy Chair of the AU. I can see several other folks have already come on. We got BlaXit in the building. We got Brother Shakara in the building. Donna Stamir in the building. Baba Elliott Booker streaming live through Time for an Awakening Radio and Black Talk Radio Network. So we are prepared to go. The presentation by the Deputy Chair of the AU, initially what he wanted to do is he wanted to make that available to everyone ahead of time. So then during the actual session, it would just be entirely something where, you know, we're having interactions, we're having Q&A, we're discussing things, we're bringing forth what it is that the AU Commission can do in order to assist the Black people who are continually subjected to anti-Black genocide. So this is definitely something that we wanted people to get a chance to see ahead of time. But within the last hour, we were setting the video. We got the video up and live because we are on point and available to everyone. The Deputy Chair to the AU is also going to be coming on, and we're going to have the video. The plan is to stream that video live, so everyone who is seeing us live and in real time, we have Ajakwa Joe, who is going to make that video available so that everybody can see it together. It's not a long video, it's very well done, edited and put together, AU quality video. So that link is there for everyone to be able to access. And then from there, and it's also going to be streamed to everybody live. So from there, we're going to just go straight into, after seeing the video, go into the Q&A. And I hope everyone has some very pointed, of course, very respectful, but also very pointed questions about what the AU Commission, especially the Deputy Chair to the AU, can do to assist African people who are subjected to anti-Black genocide. So, Ajakwa Joe, if you can start the stream.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Our topic for today, do Black Lives Matter? This has been a most unusual couple of weeks. Let us imagine what we have, an anxious and an uncertain international situation faced with the coronavirus. The world order, as we have come to know it, is no longer recognizable. Things have been upended. We have total or near total lockdown. Air flights suspended. We have casualties in Italy. We have casualties in New York, London, and Paris. All of us confronted by this invisible enemy, against whom up to now, we do not have any effective weapons to handle. The only thing we have to do is to exercise social distancing, wearing of masks, regular hand washing, and keeping safe. Amidst all this, what do we find? A Black man callously murdered by a white policeman, his life slowly squeezed out of him by a knee on his neck. His plea that he cannot breathe, I cannot breathe, calling on his dead mama, went unheeded. But however, under normal circumstances, this must have gone unnoticed. But thanks to technology, a mobile phone captures the scene. The moment it's captured, the amateur video goes viral to prove that a picture is worth 1,000 words. What began as a routine all-American affair involving an apparent racist policeman in Minneapolis suddenly goes global. All hell seems to have broken loose. We have demonstrations in Paris, in London, in Sydney, and Brussels. In Antwerp, the statue of good old King Leopold has been pulled down. In Bristol, a known slave trader, Sir Edward Colston, who managed also to be a philanthropist, has his statue pulled down by an angry crowd. Now, this crowd comprised all ethnic groups, people of all colors. The statue was pulled down, trundled along the streets, into the harbor, and driven over the wall into the ocean, literally to swim or sink with the fishes. The statue of Sir Cecil Rhodes is not spared. At Oriel College, a debate ensued and a vote to pull the statue down. This is the kind of casual racism that has come to characterize some British and American leaders. But it is not new. African slaves were considered less than human. For example, in the debates which took place in the United States Congress on the question of abolition of slavery, one senator, Senator James Henry Hammond, expressed himself in this manner. Quote, "Although I am perfectly satisfied that no human process can elevate the black man to an equality with the whites, admitting that it can be done, are we prepared for the consequences which must follow? Are we, the people of the North, prepared to place our political power on an equality with their own? Are we prepared to see them mingling in our legislatures? Is any portion of this country prepared to see them enter these halls and take their seats by our sides in perfect equality with white representatives of an Anglo-Saxon race? To see them fill that chair? To see them placed at the heads of your departments? Or to see some Othello or Toussaint or Boyer, gifted with genius and inspired by ambition, grasp the presidential wreath and wield the destinies of this great republic? Let us remember that Barack Obama, a true African American, became president. It is this deep-seated racism that resulted in the murder of George Floyd and many more African Americans. It is this same deep-seated racism that the youth of America and now the youth of the world all together is rallying and protesting against under the banner of Black Lives Matter.
So I think it is time now for member states of the African Union to look at this whole Black Lives Matter from a continental point of view. The African Union Commission, of course, is member state driven. So one is hoping that 1, 2, or 3 member states can come together and mobilize opinion. And if they're able to do that, they can instruct the African Union, both the Commission and the Assembly of Heads of State.
To the Home Secretary of the British government, Priti Patel, quintessential British Home Secretary, who claimed she was seeking to the core of her being, seeking to echo the sentiments of her Prime Minister Boris Johnson, a known young Turk, if ever there was one. She only ended up sounding more Catholic than the Pope. Vandalism will not be tolerated, she said. That sounds fair enough. That sounds a little more like the law and order president we have come to know as Donald J. Trump. Perhaps in periods such as this, we need to go back and listen to the brave and wise statesman, Sir Winston Spencer Churchill. He it was who advised students of politics to study history. The further back you look, he admonished, the further forward you are likely to see. So today, we shall endeavor to interrogate this matter a little further by looking back into the history of Africa in a bid to make sense of all this. And perhaps we might be able to glimpse a bit of the future. Now, let us recall the classic work of economic history, Capitalism and Slavery, by the former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Eric Williams, who observed in the opening chapter, quote, when in 1492, Christopher Columbus, representing the Spanish monarchy, discovered a new world. He set in train the long and bitter international rivalry over colonial possessions, for which after 4.5 centuries, no solution has yet been found, unquote. To quote him again, quote, he says, Negroes were stolen from Africa to work the lands stolen from the Indians. Thus began what has become known now as the transatlantic slave trade. According to the British calendar of state papers for the year 1663, the Negro slaves were, quote, the strength and sinews of this Western world, unquote. Therefore, the preservation and improvement of the trade to Africa, that is the slave trade, was, quote, a matter of very high importance to the kingdom, the plantations thereunto belonging. And so this matter remained a cardinal objective of British foreign policy all the way up to 1873. Now, in accordance with the current policy of the Stuart monarchy, the slave trade was entrusted to the Company of Royal Adventurers trading to Africa. This company was incorporated in the year 1663. It was intended to last 1,000 years. However, on 20th September 1672, they had to incorporate a new company. This time they called it the Royal Africa Company, and it was created by Royal Charter. This charter was signed by King Charles II. Its stated objective was the further encouragement of the undertakers in discovering the golden mines and settling of the plantations so laudable an enterprise and conducing to an end as the increase of traffic and merchandise, wherein this nation, England, has been famous. And further, a special grace do hereby grant unto the Society of the Royal Africa Company of England and their successors and none others to be prepared and furnished with ordnance, with artillery, with ammunition, and shall hereafter have, use, and enjoy all mines and silver which are or shall be found in South Barbary, Guinea, or Angola, for the buying and the selling and exchanging of goods, wares, and merchandise, to wit, gold, silver, and negroes, and to import redwood, elephant's teeth, and negro slaves. The Royal Charter continues, quote, we do hereby, for us, our heirs, and our successors, give full power and authority under the said Royal Africa Company of England and their successors to enter into any ship, vessel, and attack, arrest, and seize all manner of ships, vessels, negro slaves, etc., provided that we, our heirs and successors, shall have and may have, take and receive 2/3 of all gold mines which shall be found, seized, possessed in the parts and places aforesaid, unquote. The authority, therefore, was direct from the crown. Over the years, the British establishment has not been exactly upfront with this aspect of their history. They would rather nobody talked about it. They have gone to great lengths to obfuscate and to obscure this history. But facts are stubborn, and facts have this uncomfortable habit of not going away that easily. They have this habit of popping up like warts or gray hair where you least want them to appear. So the British establishment and their Oxford professors have rather sought to obscure this history of their involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. They have tended to emphasize the fact that Britain was the first country to abolish the slave trade, referred to euphemistically as this odious commerce, unquote. It cannot be denied, ladies and gentlemen, that credit is in order for having abolished an otherwise great source of wealth. Clearly, the British Parliament, then Prime Minister Charles James Fox, his colleagues Pitt and company deserve some credit. The truth, however, is that Britain was also at the time the greatest slaving nation on earth and had reaped enormous profit out of African flesh and blood for a period of over 400 or so years. It has been argued that Britain's rise to prominence, that is a point conceded by former Prime Minister Tony Blair, was somewhat related to their massive slave trading profits. That is to say, the primitive accumulation of capital. It was the super profits from the slave trade which fueled the Industrial Revolution in England and became the engine of the British Empire, now the Commonwealth of Nations. For our purposes today, it is enough for us to cast our minds on the celebration of the 200th anniversary of the abolition of the slave trade by the British Parliament and the statement made on this topic by then Prime Minister Tony Blair. The date was 27th November 2006. This statement is entitled Britain's Role in the Slave Trade. I should limit myself to the first few paragraphs of the statement. Quote, the transatlantic slave trade stands as one of the most inhuman enterprises in history. At a time when the capitals of Europe and America were championing the enlightenment of man, their merchants were enslaving a continent. Racism, not the rights of man, drove the horrors of this triangular trade. Some 12 million were transported. Some 3 million died, all Africans. Slavery's impact on Africa, the Caribbean, the Americas, and Europe was profound. Thankfully, Britain was the first country to abolish the trade. Today, as we approach the commemoration of the 200th anniversary of that abolition, it is only right that we also recognize the active role Britain played until then in the slave trade. Quote, British industry and ports were intimately intertwined in it. Britain's rise to global prominence was partially dependent on the system of colonial slave labor. And as we recall its abolition, we should also recall our place in its practice. Quote, it is hard to believe that what would now be a crime against humanity was legal at the time, unquote. So we ask, legal? Come to think of it, what could have made this practice legal? And by what law? And by what legal system? And by what jurisprudence? Let us proceed by recalling simply the arising from the royal authority of His Royal Highness King Charles II of England, an Asiento contract was signed in the year of our Lord 1701 between the Queen of England and the King of Spain. The title of the agreement speaks to its intention. Quote, it says, contract for blacks or Negroes made by the King of Spain and agreed for Her Majesty of Great Britain for herself and her subjects as she shall appoint to be contractors, unquote. Now, part one of the contract reads, with license from Her Majesty, the contractor takes upon them the asiento or agreement to import Negro slaves into the Spanish West Indies and to establish this necessary trade for them and the reciprocal benefit of the majesties and subjects of both crowns, and the contractors oblige themselves to import in a space of 10 years, 48,000 Negroes of both sexes, unquote. The agreement then goes on to describe in considerable detail the commercial duties we paid on each African bought and sold. They then set sail, supplied with ordnance, guns, handcuffs, etc., provided by the royal family of the United Kingdom. Now, how was Britain going to fulfill her part of this great legal undertaking? This contract to supply Negroes to the territories of the King of Spain. Let us remember the legal term, pacta sunt servanda. That is to say, agreements ought to be honored. Did Britain possess a farm in West Africa from where she had cultivated Negroes to reap, to harvest thereof, and to supply the King of Spain? Just picture, if you could, the violence that was about to be visited on our African ancestors, defenseless Africans who have nothing to do with agreements between European royalty. Fortunately, unlike the Africans who relied on oral traditions and their griots, Europeans kept meticulous records of their international trade in their statistics. In the abstract of evidence which was presented before the Select Committee of the House of Commons, it is stated clearly in Chapter 2 thereof, quote, that the trade in slaves in the basin of the river Senegal, the Negroes were procured chiefly by war and also by kidnapping, i.e., lying in wait near a village where there was no war and seizing whom they could. What can we in the African Union, indeed the African Union Commission, or perhaps all of Africa, do to help our brothers and sisters? When Africa is integrating, it has been said, and developing, the whole world comes together. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our task. It is cut out for us, and we dare not fail our people. I'd like to thank you for your kind and polite attention. Thank you very much.
Everyone's time. Shakara is on, and we actually had a request out of the Gambia, Sister Juliet Ryan out of BlaXit, who said she's actually going to try to deal with citizenship in the Gambia. So she wanted to maybe put her questions up front. So I think we can definitely allow for that. But you, yeah. All right, Sister Juliet, I'm seeing you today.
Good things, brother. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again. I'd like to thank I'd like to thank His Excellency. His Excellency, I hope you can hear me. This is Juliet, the founder of BlaXit, and we are a family of over 31,000 diasporans, and we came together as a result of us BlaXitting the UK amid dire racism that was covered very extensively in the British media that both of our children experienced. Growing up in England, we faced horrific racism, violent racism, unbelievable psychological racism, subtle racism, indirect and direct racism. We faced institutional racism, systematic racism, and systemic racism. And as a result of that, we realized that we had to come home. And we are residents here in the Gambia, and we love the Gambia, and we love the Gambian people who have given us a fantastic welcome here. However, as many other diasporans, we have faced issues around the subject of citizenship. Here in the Gambia, where I live, where I invest, where I have built my home with my family and my son who goes to school, we are considered aliens. And it makes us feel like second-class citizens. And I myself have campaigned heavily here for automatic citizenship. I've called press conferences, put on the front page of the newspapers, been in the news campaigning ardently, especially in light of the new constitution, the draft constitution that is being drawn up. Unfortunately, it seems as though our appeals, and I represent 31,000 people, has fallen on deaf ears. We have to wait 15 years before we can become a citizen here in the Gambia, which is a travesty. We are returning home. We are Kunte Kintes. We are Africans, and we hate not to be received as Africans, as other than. And it upsets and hurts us that a European, the people that are responsible, majority responsible for our enslavement, are able to get citizenship before we do by merely marrying a Gambian. And they can obtain that within 7 to 5 years, while we're waiting 15 years. And it also affects our ability to own property and be classed in a different category where we have to lease our property rather than own it in perpetuity. This is a travesty. We coming back need to work hand in hand with our African continental brothers and sisters. So I want to know, what can you do to clear some of these obstacles that we are facing, not just in Gambia, but across the continent? Because although we and our descendants were enslaved and were on plantations for many, many, many hundreds of years, some of them weren't there for hundreds of years and were enslaved in the 1800s, because it was my great-great-grandparents which were enslaved, which were working on the cane plantation in Jamaica. What can the AU do to help us? Because we would like to connect with the AU and find out what solutions there are. Our platform, we have over 2.3 million people who are listening to us, who are hearing our pleas. But why isn't it, out of those 2 million people that are listening to us, why is the African government not hearing us? What can the AU do to help make our voice heard? What can the AU do to help us to obtain citizenship of diasporans? What can the AU do to help us stop being called aliens in our homelands?
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Sister Julia, I can feel the emotions that are going through her. Over to you, please. That's the question. Citizenship.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My sister, can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me thank you for your question. Let me thank you for your passion. And if I may say so without offense, I like your afro. It reminds me of Angela Davis. And let me thank you for coming home, back home. You know, this is very much work in progress. And it's about changing minds. It's about organizing to change policy. A lot of us in Africa have not been as acquainted with our history as we ought to. We are slowly now getting acquainted. We are slowly now beginning to understand the travesty that was inflicted on our continent, which divided and fractured the African family. And we are slowly doing it in Ghana. We are welcoming back our brothers and sisters from the diaspora who have a lot of skills, a lot of investment. They bring a lot of stuff because they really want to come back to Africa. So we're doing it at the national level, and we're hoping that this campaign will grow. And this process that we are going through now, you and I and Kambon, is part of the educational process. You know, ideas are known to become a material force when they have seized the masses. And it's about organization, it's about teaching, it's about changing minds and getting that into policy. So we have 1 or 2 countries beginning to see the value of receiving our brothers and sisters from the diaspora who have come with trained minds. You know, there was a very passionate letter written by W.E. Du Bois to Kwame Nkrumah when he was invited to come home to Ghana and settle and work on the Encyclopedia Africana. In this letter, he said, our forefathers were taken from the coast of West Africa in chains. I want to thank you for welcoming me here to come and work and see the evening of my life in Africa so that when I die, my bones will mingle with the bones of my forefathers. This is the depth of the emotion shown by people like W.E. Du Bois, people like George Padma who came to work. But that was only the beginning. And with people like Obadile Kama who have come, and issues that we have seen with George Floyd, it is slowly becoming a flood. So I want to thank you for bringing your expertise. I can assure you that your value is very much appreciated in the Gambia as well as in Ghana, everywhere. And this can only increase with time, okay? So thank you, my sister, for coming. And I assure you, in spite of all the obstacles, you are very much loved and welcome back home in Africa. But we still got work to do. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much. The last thing I'd like to add is just that recently the Bank of England and also the Church of England have both, and many other organizations have made statements of apologizing for the so-called links in slavery. I think it's reparations time. I think it's time for the payback. I think it's time for them to cut the check. I think it's time for us to get compensation in order to help with the repatriation. I have hundreds of thousands of people who want to come home, and we need for the AU to pave the way. Is there a way that the AU can represent us? We are over 200 million people in the diaspora, and a huge percentage of us want to come home. We don't want to be there anymore in the West. The West is not best. So we want to come home. Is there a way that you can be a liaison?
The AU as an organization is member state driven. We take our instructions from our member states. So our campaign will have to be with our member states. And I can tell you, if you have a few more member states thinking in that direction and making policy in that direction, it's going to happen. We are also, we've had apologies from lawyers, we've had apologies from a few banks. We are waiting to hear an apology from Her Majesty the Queen herself. Okay, so we have to struggle and fight and push for that. And then this will become a flood. No force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. And this time is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Show us the money. We want the money.
Okay.
But, yes, sir. I had two small questions, and they're kind of not necessarily on the conversations of reparations. However, they are important. I wanted to know your opinion on how we can get our youth, the diaspora youth, the Africans who are here all around, and continental Africans. How can we strengthen a relationship between our youth so they don't experience what we're experiencing right now? You know, like for those who are 15 and under, how can we be doing things to encourage them to understand that y'all are brothers and sisters, things that we're currently struggling with?
That's right. You know, first of all, we have to teach them a bit of African history, but also a lot depends on how Africa gets its act together. You see, so long as Africa has not been able to put its act together properly, it has a negative effect on our diaspora brothers and vice versa. Okay, so it's as much work for us here on the continent as for you in the diaspora, and to get the two people, the two sides speaking to each other and learning about each other more. I know things are more difficult in the States because you're in a minority. It's not so bad in the Caribbean because the blacks are in a majority. But things are particularly difficult in the States because you have a right-wing white backlash, which you have to contend with, which means that you need more support from Africa. You need Africa to speak more to your case. Okay, but as I said earlier, there's work that we have to do together. And when you get a chance to visit the continent, bring your kids, bring your fathers, bring your brothers, and visit as much as you can. You know, it brings a certain catharsis, a certain togetherness. You suddenly get to realize that, look, you are from somewhere and you are somebody. You are very much a queen where you come from. You have to come home and reclaim it. I don't know whether this is sufficiently explanatory to you.
Yes, it is. And then my last question was, how can Africans of the diaspora influence what our sister BlaXit was saying, the pockets of our continental brothers and sisters? Because I think if they can see us as more valuable, you know, if you're more value to someone, they take you a little bit seriously. So how can we, with COVID-19, kind of with China being moved out as a huge manufacturer of the world, how can we as the African diaspora put ourselves in Africa right in that spot, in that position? What are some pragmatic, practical things?
There is a Diaspora Africa Forum in Ghana, which is organized by African Americans who have returned home to Ghana, and is based in the Du Bois Center. I think if you Google, you can link up with them. There'll be a lot you can connect with them about. Brother Kambon can help you do that. Brother Kambon, can you do that? Yeah, what?
Yes, I can. I'm based in Ghana, and we have all of those contacts. And again, we have the experience of getting citizenship. So definitely Neath Knight. If you're rolling with us, then you're already, in the know.
I'm coming, y'all. Give me time.
How are you, Deputy Chair Kwesi, Kwate?
I'm all right. I'm surviving.
Question for you. According to published reports here in the U.S., earlier this week, the UA addressed the Human Rights Council in Geneva about the George Floyd situation here in the States.
That's right.
The question is, was that a planned strategy to start addressing some of the atrocities going on in the 6th region, Black people here in the States? And the second part to that question is, in your mind, is there a connection between the blatant murders of our people here in the diaspora by the first line of defense, which is the police departments, and the Western aggression on Blacks worldwide by the U.S. military?
I think there is, and a lot of it also has to do with the state of Africa as it is. As Africa gets better organized, as Africa gets better integrated, as Africa puts its act together better, so will Africa's children in diaspora be better respected and get better treated. So our fortunes are tied together.
Okay.
Yeah. But Africa is still very much work in progress. We have individual African nations who historically have not even been trading among themselves. Now we have the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which is an important game changer because now we are going to focus more on intra-African trade, more integration, more manufacturing. And as Africa's prestige rises, so will Africa's children, both in and out of Africa, in the diaspora, be better treated because we will have greater clout to weigh on issues affecting our brethren, both in the United States and the Caribbean. That is how I see it.
Kind of dovetail on what you just stated. I'm quite sure the African Union has a plan moving forward for the continent and the diaspora as far as working together. In your mind, what is the best way that our people in the diaspora can best aid our brothers and sisters on the continent? And I'm talking about our children, preparing our children, whether it's in STEM, whether it's in the construction trades, whether it's in education. What is the best way that we can start preparing our youth to aid and our people forward?
I think, to tell you the truth, we need to get to know each other better. We need to visit Africa. We need to bring them home. We need to visit each other. We need to get to know each other better. Okay? And then our children will begin to have the confidence that comes from having to visit where your ancestral home is. Okay? It brings a certain catharsis to your psychology. You suddenly become rooted. You can ask Mr. Kambon, what having come to Ghana, what having been through the slave castles, what it tells you about where you come from, your psychology, your culture.
Okay.
It is very important, but it is not easily, it is not palpable. It's psychological, it's spiritual. But you need to come and visit. I hope you visited Africa before, have you?
I've never been.
There you go. There you go. You're welcome to come to Ghana, man.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Happy, Elliot.
Yes, sir.
All right, and thank you so much for your questions.
All right.
We've had a couple come through on the chat. We have someone else. The next person to come up is going to be Baba Richard. and then Baba Lumumba. We've had a couple of questions coming through the chat, and I will ask you. I know Honorable Kwesi Kwarteng, my senior brother. All right, cool. All right, so let's do this. Let's take Baba Richard, then I'll ask one of the chat questions, and then Baba Lumumba, and we'll take it from there. All right, Baba Richard, please.
I want to thank you, Honorable Commissioner, for allowing us to be able to engage with you, and Abibitumi for creating this environment. I was going to follow up with, well, I had the question about the 6th region also, you in your response to Brother Kambon, you raised the point earlier about policy, and you also made the point that about CARICOM. Those of us who in the USA who see ourselves in a colonized situation, it seems, and we want to also be able to have a voice or a representation in the AU, and the understanding was to use this 6th district to do that. But because we're not a nation state, my question to you is, how do we go about, what are your thoughts and views about us? How do we go about making the policy understanding to the AU that is important for us who are in a nation state but not a nation state, so that we can be able to utilize at some point when the AU do come to that understanding of how it's going to be done, to be able to have a representation there.
I see the point you're making, and I see the complexity of the issues not being a nation, as it were. But we have a diaspora unit here, and we can relate with you. We can relate to the organizations that you form. We can relate to the NAACP. We can relate with other Black American associations, the universities, the organizations, and we welcome any association whatsoever. But this your task as much as ours. Okay, we need to fashion out new ways of relating to each other, and we need to think out of the box here.
Yes. And which means that we need to have more dialogue around structure and policy in order to present to the AU.
Policy and strategy,
right.
Absolutely, and ways to assist each other. Okay. So let's think through this together.
All right, absolutely, we appreciate that. And I'm going to post a link to the diaspora section. Diaspora. We have Baba Lumumba. If we can have you in your questions, there are quite a few more coming to the chat, but we'll see what we have time for.
Yes, greetings.
What going on?
Honor and respect to you.
Yeah, man.
And also to
reciprocated.
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and also to Professor Kambon, thank you for hosting Connect Across the Water. So the question, actually I had two questions that have already been asked. One by Professor Kambon in relation to IET, and the other by Brother Richard in relation to Africans who are born and raised in the United States and who may not move back to Africa. Understand that many of our people will not be moving back to Africa, living and fighting for liberation and independence and representation right where they are in the diaspora. So as a representative of a Haitian organization.
Come check us out. Come check us out sometime. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been to the continent, and I look forward to going back after the pandemic is over to spend some more time with our brothers and sisters.
Okay.
Okay. But as a representative of a Haitian organization, and also someone who lives in the United States, so we see the neocolonialism, the imperialism of the United States as it exists in Haiti. We see the the racism and the brutality of American politics as it exists in the United States. My question then is, international charges see often against African heads of state, holding us to task on human rights. Is the African Union, the African Union Commission, willing and ready and up to the task to hold the United States government up to account on its human rights history against the lives of African people in those international institutions like that?
Yeah, we could try, but you see the international situation also, international relations is one of power and politics, and that's a reality. So you could raise questions and hope that some of it will come through. But I don't know whether we have the power to compel. We can only raise issues that can touch the conscience and that can influence behavior in another place, but you cannot compel. That's the reality.
So, Honorable, there are other questions. I'm going to take my authority as the convener, co-convener with you of this esteemed August event to give it to you if you have any closing words for us. For those who have any other questions, perhaps they can be relayed by email. You and I are in touch. We're in contact. And I also have the contact of
can continue
the colleagues.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just like you said, engagement, continue engagement. But do you have any last words to wrap things up for the hundreds that are on the chat right now and the thousands who are listening to you and who will listen? We got folks with 1 million subscribers who are going to look at this.
I simply want to thank you all for the privilege of engaging with you. For me, it's been an inspiration and an education. So I want to thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And we thank you too. We intended to start with a libation, but the tech difficulties in trying to set things up did not allow that to happen. So this is the calabash, and to close us out, some water is poured on the ground in the memory of millions of Africans who died in enslavement, and in hopes of the millions of Africans who are going to restore justice, bring the land of Black people back into effect, Kemet in full effect. And again, we thank you for your time, Honorable, and we look forward to the next engagement. You are true to your position, just as we hope you would do. You are coming, and you're actually speaking to our issues. We're going to make that concrete by actually adding some support to you. You shouldn't be one single person, not that you are, but you shouldn't be one single person fighting the good fight. So those of us in the diaspora, those of us who are descendants, we're going to fight on your behalf as well. So we're here for you just like you're here for us. Simba Simbi, hold up that which holds you up. And we thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm very flattered. Thank you too much.
We thank you too.
Ciao.
All right, Brother Shaka, we appreciate it. And we want to let Honorable get to bed in Addis Ababa. And thank you once again.
We'll catch up in Accra soon, man.
Inu.
Okay.
One nation, one Africa. Thank you, BlaXit family. Please keep watching, please subscribing, and remember, follow your dreams.
Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today. today. Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today.